Hey everybody, this is Perch, and this is not a news story, or at least I thought it's not a news story. It's being reported today on a couple news sites that Brian Michael Bendis is no longer exclusive at DC Comics. Now, this is something that I think we covered here back in November or maybe earlier. So it's not, this isn't new information, and it's not for sure. This is what we've heard, that DC was ending their exclusive contracts, including with people like Tom King, who had some exclusivity deals. That was something that they were going to put an end to. These are kind of big name writer exclusive contracts have been signed during the time of Didio and other instances. And I think when Didio left, it was a foregone conclusion they would likely walk away from some of these. And I think the three names that get mentioned a lot are Scott Snyder, Tom King, and Brian Michael Bendis. And again, this is one of those things that, do we know this for sure? No, we don't. But, you've got, at this point, Scott Snyder has some other comics going on. He always did. He had his image work and everything else. So the idea of an exclusive agreement was always a bit kind of head-scratching, puzzling anyway. In some cases, these exclusives are along the lines of, first right of refusal, which basically means if you have a pitch for a comic, you have to go present it to the company you have the exclusive agreement with. If they pass on it, then you're free to take it other places, but not all other places. In the past, it would have been, Brian Michael Bendis, for example, couldn't go and get a contract, a gig writing at Marvel. Even if he pitched a story to DC and they flatly rejected it, he couldn't then go shop it to their named competitors. And usually there's a list of competitors in those contracts that are no-go to work with. But this is why you've seen some work go on at Image and other places. At any rate, Bendis was a huge name, a huge get that DC promoted heavily a couple years ago. In 2018, he went on to Superman. If you haven't seen it yet, there is a video that talks about Bendis' sales numbers. It's in the, start looking at those playlists. There are playlists that I've created for the channel because there's just way too many videos. So if you want, you can go look at the playlist. There's one called Sales Analysis. I know a lot of people who've come over recently who really like that kind of stuff. That's a good place to go. And you can see some of these numbers for yourself. But I did do Bendis on Superman. I think objectively, without getting too much into the emotion of it, what DC was hoping would happen with Bendis in terms of the amount of sales momentum and attention and kind of talent flow and other things didn't happen. I think I think it's hard to argue that fact that nobody anticipated. We bring Bendis in, we put him on Superman, we give him a lot of leeway to kind of do what he wants with the title and introduce some new concepts and things, put some of our top art talent on it. And to be getting sales in the 30,000s was not what people had in mind. But again, go take a look at that sales video. It's an interesting one. It shows where the drops are and how things really didn't work out. Again, I don't think this was any big surprise to a lot of people. Bendis, you cannot take it away from him. He had a very critically high acclaimed run on Daredevil. He moves to the Avengers, and he has a really nice period of time between New Avengers at launch through what happened with Civil War, then Secret Invasion, which he helmed, and then Dark Reign, and ultimately that whole run of titles, he created a lot of money and a lot of momentum. And no matter whether you like the guy or hate the guy, whether you love his style or don't like his style, he was putting up really big numbers at a time when Marvel needed them and wanted them. He helped put the Avengers and some of these books on the map. And it's one of the reasons why I think DC's New 52, they faced heavy competition. And you do have to credit Bendis with a lot of, Marvel getting back in the show. So you can't say he's not a talented writer, or he doesn't deserve the acclaim he deserves. He definitely does. He's brought the sales numbers. However, in recent years, he moved over to the X-Men, and that run was fraught with a lot more challenges, some of which were not his own. During that time, Bendis's run on the X-Men, there was this kind of question mark about how much Marvel wanted to actually promote them, given that Fox had the movie rights, and the Avengers was more of where they wanted to put their money. Bendis also was part of the very ill-fated and problematic, there's a video about this too, creative committee that Marvel basically put in play with Joe Quesada and others that were supposed to help advise Kevin Feige and the members of that team how the movie should work. Unfortunately, Feige and the various people involved in Marvel Studios found the notes and suggestions and insertion of the comics crew irritating. And for better or worse, or true or not true, or whether it's fair or not fair, Bendis was one of the people that got singled out more than others for being, quote unquote, annoying to Feige and that team. And they were asked basically not to be involved in that. And then there was a strange little moment where Bendis was giving some creative advice to Sony at a time when Marvel and Disney weren't really that enamored with Sony. So there was a bumpy road. And ultimately, the X-Men struggled a bit as a title. He moved over to Iron Man, and that title struggled a lot in terms of sales. It did not have the same impact. Very similar to what happened with Bendis and Superman. So he moves over, and he comes to DC in 2018. And he basically brought with him his network. We got, Chip Zdarsky, we got Kelly Sue DeConnick, Alex Malev, David Mack, David Walker, Matt Fraction, and many others who all kind of came over with him to DC, which is something Didio would really want. He wanted to do some talent poaching. One way you do it is you figure out who the anchor person is. In this case, it's Bendis. You hire them, and they come and they bring all their friends with them. And you get this massive, surge of talent. The problem is that talent was arguably not the big muscle talent that DC believed it would be. And we saw that as the titles kind of, came about, and none of them really moved the needle in any kind of major way. Meanwhile, Scott Snyder continued to kind of rule the roost a bit with what he was doing on Justice League and then ultimately Year of the Villain, all the rest. We got some perhaps predictable confusion and I won't say conflict, because by all accounts, Scott Snyder, Brian Michael Bendis, they got along. But there was definitely, to the reader, to the customer, a confusion over what was going on between Event Leviathan, the Superman books, and everything there, versus what Snyder was doing with Year of the Villain and Luthor as part of the Legion of Doom. And it just, from a scheduling perspective, it came across looking very convoluted, whether creators intended for that or not. But all of this said, the numbers weren't there. Sales did not come to pass. The Wonder Comics line didn't work. And then there were a lot of comments about the pay. And one of the pieces is that both the pay for Bendis was very, very high. I've heard a couple people mention numbers, and in the interest of privacy, I won't disclose that here, but they were expensive. He was very expensive of a writer. And then when you combine that with doing multiple titles, he's on Superman and Action and Legion and some of the Wonder Comics stuff and Young Justice and Naomi, it starts to add up. You start to really pump a lot of money out. And when you get acquired, of course, when you're folded into Warner Media and there's cuts and layoffs and other things, you look at those numbers and say, okay, why are we paying this guy, what could be north of $50K a month to write books that are all selling under 40,000 copies? Why would we do that? That gets to be a problem. And then there's other side effects where if you have creators who also are top stable people. If you're Tom King or if you're Scott Snyder, you're going, hey, what about, I'm pulling in much higher numbers than that. What do I get paid? And so this is the problem you have. So all this comes to pass. Rumor is, again, it's being reported on news sites. But like I said, I reported it 2.5 months ago. So I don't know. The Bendis exclusive agreement is reportedly done. He's still, obviously, he's on Justice League. And he's, rumor has it the Event Leviathan and Leviathan stuff is going to come to pass, and that's going to get going again in the DC universe, maybe through the pages of Justice League. Who knows? Naomi is in the Justice League, so that's where that's going to get pushed. And but it does open up the door for Bendis to do work for other companies. I don't see him going back to Marvel anytime soon for a lot of the same reasons. I think that, maybe he does a creator-owned thing on Image. I think that's most likely where he goes. Could be something with one of the up-and-comers, maybe IDW scrapes some money, boom, others. He was obviously a very close pal or got along well with Axel Alonso, so maybe he gets to go over there to AWA. The problem is these comic publishers don't have the kind of cash to pony up that maybe it would take to get somebody like Bendis in. So anyway, we'll see where it all goes. I think the next step here is how big a splash, how big of an impact is this comic, is Justice League going to have? That's the big question mark. If suddenly that comic starts looking like the old Avengers numbers, I think he'll definitely have more stuff to do at DC. But a lot of eyes on March and April and May, and to see how those orders come in and what happens, and what this next transition of life looks like. But anyway, there you go. That's the news of the day. Let me know if you have any comments or questions in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Check the description of the video. You'll see where to get in touch with me if you want to do that. Follow me on social media or send me an email. But most importantly, thanks for listening.